Folks, Charlie Gibble here, certified financial planner. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act. This is going to mean tax reductions for a lot of you, starting in the tax year 2025 versus what you may have experienced recently. This bill was 1,000 pages. The end result was 1,000 pages plus like 870 pages and amendments. Believe it or not, I read a good chunk of it, which is really exciting reading. It's a real page turner, I tell you. But no, so there is so much in this bill that could mean good things to you, such as do you get tip income? Well, no taxes on tips up to a certain level, but if you make too much money, you know, if you make 500 grand a year in tips, you're not going to participate in this, right? So there are phase outs. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay up to a certain limit. Same thing, if you make $1 gazillion, you're not going to be eligible for this tax rate. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. The car loan thing. So if indebtedness happens because you bought a car and have a loan against it in 2025 and beyond, you can potentially, unless you make $1 gazillion, you know, it phases out, you can potentially deduct up to $10,000 of that loan interest. Kind of like what you can do with your house, right? Well, at least if you itemize deductions. So there are a lot of areas where you can reduce your taxes. State and local tax deductions. A lot of you have heard of the SALT that's been on the news a lot of strife around the SALT deduction. That is now going from $10,000 up to $40,000. What does that mean? It means, say like there's a mansion up the block from me here, right? I don't know what they pay in property taxes per year. Maybe it's 40 grand a year, which is crazy. It probably is, actually. I'd be interested to look at that. Say 40 grand per year. Assuming that they itemize their deductions, they could now deduct all $40,000 of that. Unless they make $1 gazillion, then that phases out. And they probably do make $1 gazillion. So that probably does phase out. So higher state and local tax deductions as well. Now, the areas that pertain to most of you, to most of us, has to do with this. This is the cool part, especially the cool part, or the part that me as a financial planner gets excited about. Number one, these low tax rates that we've been enjoying since 2017, they are now permanent. Permanent, unquote. Permanent means they're not scheduled to go away. But you and I both know that the next administration, the next Congress, anything can happen, right? So prior to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, we had tax rates that were higher than where they are today. The highest marginal tax rate was 39.6%. That dropped down in 2017 to 10%, 12% based on your income, 10%, 12%, 22%, 24%, 37% being the highest. These were scheduled to go back to where they were, those higher levels, for tax years 2026 and beyond. That's not going to happen as a result of this One Big Beautiful Bill Act. HR 1 is what it's called. That's not going to happen. These new lower tax rates that we've been enjoying for some years, it's going to continue into perpetuity, quote unquote. Again, nothing is permanent, right? So that's cool. So our low tax rates relative to history, that's where we're going to stay at for some time. But just as cool as that is the deductions. So you have your income, and we oftentimes have our income reduced because of standard deductions, right? The government says, hey, you can reduce all this income that you have by a certain number, and that'll mean less of a tax bill in the end. We want big reductions in our income when it comes to paying taxes. So in 2017, the standard deduction is what it's called. It doubled. So prior to 2017, it was like $7,000 per person. So what does that mean? Well, me as a couple, me and my wife, married filing jointly, had a deduction of $14,000. So that meant that if we made, whatever, let's say $50,000 in a year, you subtract that $50,000, you subtract from that $14,000 deduction, our taxable income would have been $36,000 in that year, right? Taxable income, or a tax bill on $36,000 is a hell of a lot less than taxable than a tax liability on $50,000, right? Well, then came 2017, and those standard deductions doubled to where now we're almost at $30,000, right? You subtract from that $50,000 30 grand, and your tax bill is even smaller. But anyway, these higher standard deductions were scheduled to go away at the end of this tax year. They were scheduled to go back to roughly half of where they are, right? However, that's not going to happen. So these high standard deductions are now permanent, quote unquote. So as a matter of fact, $31,500 is what a married filing jointly with their standard deduction is this year. Now, if you're 65 years or older, you have additional deductions here. Number one is the senior deduction that we've had for some time, which is $3,200 for a couple married filing jointly. Okay, so let's get this straight. So we have $31,500 that Charlie just talked about, plus $3,200. So then that means that $34,700 is what we can reduce our taxable income by, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. But here is a huge part of this One Big Beautiful Bill Act is you now have an additional $12,000 in senior deduction. So if you're age 65 or older, both of you, married filing jointly, you actually get an additional $12,000. Now, there are phase out. If you make a gazillion dollars, you're not going to participate in this. And I can tell you exactly what those numbers are. Just ask me questions down below. So what does that mean if you're married filing jointly and you have an additional $12,000 in deductions? Well, that means your $34,700 that we just talked about, that goes to $46,700. And if you're making that same $50,000 in adjusted gross income, you subtract from that almost 47 grand, your tax liability is almost zero, right? So anyway, that last part that I talked about, that additional 12 grand married filing jointly, additional 6 grand if you're a single filer, that's a big deal in the whole scheme of things. So anyway, let me know if you have questions on any of this, whether it's tips, overtime, loan interest, a ton of other stuff, all the way through to no tax stamp $200 fees when it comes to short-barreled rifles and suppressors. So this bill was pretty expansive, right? So ask me questions down below if you have any.